Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're going deep into the world of ASMR. I bet you've at least heard of it by now. Maybe you've even felt those tingles yourself.
Yeah, it's really taken off, hasn't it?
Seriously. Today, we're going to be referencing this article from Nebraska Medicine, what ASMR means, how it works, and why it's popular. I mean, there are just so many questions about this whole thing, like what is actually happening in our brains when we watch these videos? Is this just a fad? Or, is there something deeper going on?
Well, and it's kind of crazy to think about, right? ASMR has absolutely exploded online. I mean, think about it. There are over 13 million ASMR videos out there.
Yeah.
But the science is still pretty new.
It does feel like we're kind of like right at the edge of a huge discovery, but we haven't quite put all the pieces together yet. So, okay, for those who've never actually experienced it, how would you describe what that ASMR sensation feels like?
Okay, so imagine like a really gentle waves of tingling, and it starts like right at the top of your head, like in the crown of your head, and then it kind of like trickles, like cascades down your neck, and sometimes it even like spreads down to your arms and legs.
Oh.
Some people say it feels like static electricity, and others say it's more like, goosebumps. But the thing is, it's almost always described as like a really pleasant feeling.
It seems like it's more than just a physical thing, though, right? Like there's definitely an emotional component, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people say they feel super relaxed and calm, like they might even get sleepy during an ASMR experience. It's kind of like this feeling of well-being that just like washes over them. And some even say it helps them with things like stress and anxiety.
It makes you wonder if it's tapping into some kind of like ancient relaxation response. You know what I mean? Like maybe this feeling of calm is connected to the way we evolved to bond and trust each other.
Yeah.
Like, think about how parents soothe their babies. It's like soft voices and gentle touch, things like that.
That's a really interesting point. It could be evolutionary. Like maybe we're wired to respond to certain sounds and visuals that make us feel safe and comfortable. It's like a deep-rooted thing,
So we've got this like tingly, blissful sensation, but like what actually causes it? This is where it gets really interesting to me.
Well, and it's not what you'd expect. It's not like loud noises or flashing lights.
Yeah.
It's usually triggered by things that are really subtle. I mean, even mundane things like whispering, soft talking, or slow, deliberate movements.
I'm thinking of those videos, where it's like someone folding a towel really carefully or like tapping their fingernails on glass.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't stop there. There are tons of different triggers. Some of them are even about personal attention, like having someone brush your hair or make eye contact with you.
Really? Eye contact can be an ASMR trigger? So wait, it's not just about like hearing stuff or being touched then?
It seems to go way beyond that. It's almost like the brain is creating a whole sensory experience, even when there's no actual physical touch happening.
That's wild. So like those videos where someone's like crinkling paper or scratching a microphone, it's like they're trying to mimic touch, but through sound.
Exactly. It's this really cool interplay between all the different ways our brains process senses, which, brings us to the big question, right? Does ASMR actually work? Like, are these videos more than just a way to zone out? Could they, actually be therapeutic?
Right, because there are people who swear that ASMR helps them with, de-stressing and falling asleep and even managing chronic pain. But then you have other people who are like, what's the big deal? So, what does the actual science say about all this?
Well, to be honest, there hasn't been a ton of research yet, but there are some pretty interesting findings starting to emerge. Like back in 2015, there was this study, and it was actually the very first peer-reviewed study on ASMR. What they found was that people who experience ASMR, their heart rates went down while they were watching ASMR videos.
Really?
And get this, that reduction in heart rate was similar to what you'd see with other relaxation techniques.
So something's definitely happening. But the question is, does that actually lead to a better mood or better mental well-being?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? And that's what we need more research for. Then there was another study in 2018, and it backed up the earlier findings about heart rate. And if you look at online ASMR communities, there are a ton of people saying it helps them deal with all kinds of different things. But we need more, serious scientific studies to really know for sure what the benefits are.
So what about people who say ASMR could be used to treat things like insomnia or anxiety? Is that just, wishful thinking? Or could there be some truth to it?
I think there's definitely potential there. The way ASMR seems to tap into those relaxation pathways in our brains is really interesting. Imagine if we could actually use that to help people who have trouble sleeping or, people struggling with anxiety. I mean, that could be a game changer. But the science isn't quite there yet to be totally sure.
It feels like there are still so many things we don't know, like why do certain triggers work for some people and not for others? And like what's going on in the brain when this all happens?
Exactly. We're just scratching the surface here. And it seems like the more we learn, the more interesting it gets. In fact, this Nebraska Medicine article we're talking about, well, they quote this neuroscience researcher, David E. Warren, and he says, the question is, does ASMR stimuli provoke a physiological response in brain activity and in the body? Then yes, there is some empirical evidence that it does.
So there's definitely something measurable happening. But then he goes on to say that, well, there isn't enough evidence yet to prove that it actually changes someone's mood or that it has any long-term effects on their mental health.
Yeah, he's being careful about getting ahead of the research. He's basically saying that we need larger scale clinical trials to really understand how ASMR impacts mental health.
So it sounds like we're kind of in this weird in-between place. Like people are definitely experiencing something and the early research looks promising. But we need more studies to really confirm what people are saying.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's kind of like we're at this frontier. We're just starting to understand, how amazing the brain is and like all the different sensory experiences it can create. It's crazy.
It really does make you wonder, like, what else are we missing? What other little things are going on that affect how we feel? We always focus on the big stuff, like what we see and what we hear. But what about touch and smell? And taste.
I mean, there's a whole world of sensations happening all the time. And we're only just beginning to figure out how they all connect to, how we see things, how we feel emotionally, all that. And ASMR, well, it's like a perfect example of how powerful those subtle cues can be.
Speaking of subtle cues, let's talk more about those ASMR triggers for a sec. Why is it that those specific things, like whispering or paper crinkling, why do those seem to work for some people?
There are actually a bunch of theories about that. One is that maybe it's tapping into something really primal, something about how we were cared for when we were babies. Think about it. You've got a parent soothing their baby with soft whispers and gentle touches, even just paying close attention to them.
Right, and that creates that feeling of safety and security.
Exactly.
So maybe, just maybe, ASMR is kind of triggering a similar response in the brain. It's like an echo of those early experiences,
Exactly. And it's not just about childhood either. Think about all those little things that happen every day that make you feel good. I don't know, getting a haircut.
A haircut, really?
Think about it. The gentle touch, the focused attention, the sound of the scissors snipping away. I mean, for some people, it's like their own personal ASMR session. It's almost like meditation in a way.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. But you're right, there is something kind of soothing about those repetitive, predictable actions.
Totally. And it's a good reminder to, be more mindful of all those little sensory experiences we have throughout the day. We're always rushing around, bombarded by stuff, and we miss those quiet moments. But those moments, they can actually have a huge impact on how we feel.
So you're saying, we should be paying more attention to how our blanket feels, or how good that fresh coffee smells, or even how warm the sun feels on our skin, things like that.
Exactly. It's about tuning into those details that we usually just ignore. And once you start doing that, you realize how powerful they are. They affect our moods. I mean, they can even affect our health.
It's like a whole new way of experiencing everything, isn't it? It's not just seeing and hearing. It's really sensing and feeling.
I know, right? And who knows? Maybe that's why so many people are into ASMR these days. Maybe it's a reminder to slow down and pay attention and to enjoy those little subtle sensations that we usually don't even notice.
And maybe even find new ways to relax, right? In places we wouldn't expect. Hey, speaking of relaxing, before we recorded this, I actually tried watching some ASMR videos myself.
Oh, that's you. What did you think? Did you, get the tingles?
Well, I'll admit, I was a little skeptical at first. Some of it was kind of weird. But then I found a few videos that, they actually did work. I actually felt that tingling sensation, especially the ones with whispering and those soft tapping sounds.
It is interesting, isn't it? Why certain triggers work for some and not others. It just shows you how complex our brains are and how different everyone's sensory experiences are.
Yeah, totally. And, I'm not saying it was a miracle cure or anything, but I did feel calmer, more relaxed, my mind just kind of quieted down for a bit.
See? There's your anecdotal evidence. Even if the science isn't all there yet, people are definitely experiencing something real and potentially beneficial.
Which brings us to the bigger picture. Like, what are the potential benefits of ASMR? And, like, how could it actually be used in therapy?
I mean, we talked about some of the anecdotal stuff, right? Like how it seems to help people with stress, anxiety, even insomnia. But imagine if we could actually use ASMR to trigger those relaxation pathways in our brains in a more specific way.
Like, what if there were ASMR videos specifically designed for different things, like guided meditation ASMR for anxiety, or like storytelling ASMR to help people fall asleep?
Exactly. It's an exciting thought. I mean, we could even imagine ASMR being used as part of therapy, maybe combined with other relaxation technique.
It's like ASMR could become another tool that therapists use to help people with all kinds of things, right? From chronic pain to stress to sleep problems.
And you know what's great about it? It's non-invasive, it's easy to access, and it's relatively cheap. Anyone can just watch these videos at home. Of course, we still need more research to really understand how it works and how to use it in the best way possible.
It does feel like we're still in the early days of figuring out what ASMR can really do. But it's pretty cool to think about the possibilities, right? Like, maybe someday doctors will be prescribing ASMR videos along with, traditional treatments.
I mean, it could happen. The more we understand about how our brains and bodies respond to sensory input, the more we can use those responses to help people.
It's kind of crazy, right? Like, we've talked about so much in this deep dive, but it feels like we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn about ASMR.
And that's what makes it so exciting. Science is all about discovery. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And we're always learning, always trying to understand more.
Yeah, it really does. It's like someone handed us this incredible map, but like half of it is blank. You can see these little glimpses of like amazing landscapes and possibilities, but we got to actually go out there and explore to really understand what's going on.
And that's what's so cool about it. There's so much potential there.
Yeah.
But we have to be like careful and do our research too.
Okay, so let's bring it back to our listeners for a minute. For the people out there who have never experienced ASMR before, what would you say to, encourage them to give it a try?
I'd say just go into it with like an open mind, be curious. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you might be surprised. I'd say start with some of the more popular triggers like the whispering videos or the tapping or the crinkling sounds. See if any of those do anything for you.
And for the people listening who are already like total ASMR fans, maybe this deep dive has given them a new way to think about those tingles they're getting. Like, it's not just some weird internet thing. There's real science behind it. And it could actually be like a really powerful tool for relaxation and well-being.
For sure. And we really want to hear from you guys too. Like, what are your experiences with ASMR? What triggers work for you? Have you noticed any benefits? Like, does it help you with stress or sleep or anything else?
Yeah, we'd love to know. Your experiences are like pieces of the puzzle, right? The more we hear from you, the more we can understand about this whole thing. And hey, who knows? Maybe your story will even inspire some new research.
Totally. So, okay, we're about to wrap up our deep dive into the world of ASMR. So let's leave everyone with like a few key takeaways. Number one, ASMR is real. It's a real thing, and it has actual measurable effects on your body.
Number two, the research is, well, it's still pretty new, but there's more and more evidence that ASMR could be really helpful for people.
And number three, I think ASMR just reminds us how powerful our senses are. They can shape our whole experience. They could affect how we feel, how we think, everything.
So yeah, stay curious out there, everybody. Keep exploring and let those tingles guide you to a more relaxed and mindful way of being.
I like that.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.